Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. So in the last Isha Upanisad class, we were studying the second and the third mantra of the Isha Upanishad. And the third mantra which we studied, we find the idea that an unillumined person has been designated as the slayer of Atman. Why? Because he has to come back to this samsara, this world of transmigratory existence again and again. That he had the potentiality as a human being. Each and every human being has the potentiality to go beyond the ignorance and realize the real nature, realize the identity with the self. We all have that potentiality. What is suicide? That the concept of suicide has been brought in the sutra, that taste pratyabhigachanti ye ke atmahanacha atmahano janaha. That they are as if suicidal, the one who haven't realized the self. So they go to the world of the asuras, which is enveloped in blind darkness. Asurya nama te loka andhena tamasavrita tangsthe pratyabhigachanti ye ke chatma hano janaha. So here we find that it has been said that the unillumined person is as if the slayer of Atman. He has to come back again and again in this world of transmigratory existence. And just to the contrary, an illumined person, through self-knowledge, once he knows that he is the self and the self alone, he is established in the self-knowledge, he attains liberation. So, and certainly he is not the slayer of Atman. In an ironical way, we have saying, this mantra says that he is not the slayer of Atman. So now naturally the question comes, what is the nature of this Atman? The knowledge or ignorance of which accounts in man's either in emancipation. If he has the knowledge, it results in liberation, emancipation. And if he is ignorant about it, it results in the bondage. So it's naturally we can conclude that the knowledge of the self is something which we have to attain in this life. So it is something which speaks of realization. But before having the realization, we should have some sort of conceptual knowledge about it. And here we find this Upanishad from the mantra 4 to the mantra 8, which we will try to take up in this class, if not all of them, at least a part of them, where we will find it is describing the nature of the Atman from the 4th to the 8th mantra. So what that Atman, which we have to realize in this life, that has been spoken of from the 4th to the 8th mantra. So now we will proceed gradually to these mantras. The 4th mantra, what it is saying. So you'll find that the 4th and the 5th mantra, these two mantras, they are the very profound statements which describes, we can say in a paradoxical way, in a paradoxical nature of the absolute reality. That in this world we will find that everything is expressed in duality, like motion, rest, distance, nearness. inside, outside. So we will find that while describing the absolute reality as it is something which is beyond all sorts of such empirical categories, so you will find that it is almost impossible to describe the self with all those dual notions. It transcends that. So these verses we will find are the central to the non-dual vision, which later has been systematically expounded by Adi Shankaracharya in his Advaita Vedanta. So these are very pertinent mantras which speaks of the non-duality of the self. So let us now enter with this small introduction to the fourth mantra. What it is saying? Anejat ekam manaso javiyo ya enat deva apnuvam purvamarshat tat dhāvata anyan atyeti tishtat tasmin apa matarishva dadhati. Anejat ekam. So at the very beginning it starts with that it is one and it is unmoving. Ekam means one. Anejat means that which is not moving. It is something which is just the same, remains the same. Sometimes the scriptures gives the example of an anvil of the blacksmith. That you may go on hammering, you won't find any deformation in it. So all the dualities of life, the happenings of life, in no way affect the self. It is just the eternal witness. It is as if sitting on the shore of the river called samsara and witnessing the flow, not in any way getting affected by the flow. It is in no way in the flow. It is as if witnessing, sitting outside the flow, watching it. It in no way gets affected by the flow. So it is something unmoving, anejat. And after saying that, immediately that's the paradox here. After saying that it is unmoving, it is something that is a one non-dual principle, immediately after that, it will as if contradict what it has said. It will say manaso javiyo. First it says it is unmoving, and now it is saying that it is even faster than the mind, swifter than the mind. So what actually it implies, we will try to understand gradually. First, let us try to understand the literal meaning. That anejat ekam, it is one and unmoving, but again it is manaso javiya, swifter than the mind. And then ya enat deva apnuvan purvam arshat. And the senses, here the word deva. The word deva here means the senses. The deva means the celestial gods, and again the word deva means the senses. Why? Because the etymological root of both the gods as well as the senses is the verbal root div. Div. Even if in Sanskrit also we use the word, in Hindi also we use the word divya. Div means to illumine, to reveal. Now the devatas, their body is shining. They have a subtle form. Their features are subtle and it's shining. That's why they are called the shining ones, the devas. And again the indriyas, all the organs of perception. The eyes, the ears, this organ of smell, the nose, the taste, the tongue, and the touch. All these five senses reveals the world to us. The world which we see is nothing but what is being revealed by these five senses. So as they reveal, so they are also called deva, just like the celestial beings, because of the same etymological meaning, that which illumines. So they senses also illumines, so that's why they are called the deva. So now it is saying na enat deva apnuvan purvam arshat. The senses also cannot reach the self for it ever goes before them. The self is faster than the senses. It is faster than the mind, manaso javio, and it is faster than the senses. What actually it means, we will gradually discuss. And then tadhavata anyan atyeti tishtat. So though it is standing still, atyeti tishtat, it is just standing still, it outstrips all that run. It overtakes all that run. Tadhavata anyan atyeti. Though it is standing still, it outreaches, it outruns all the, the senses, the mind, it overtakes them, it outreaches them. Tasmin apa matarishva dadhati. So this matarishva is the cosmic mind, the world, the cosmic life force, the cosmic mind. When the absolute reality, the Brahman, manifests as this universe, first it manifests as the cosmic mind, the Hiranyagarbha. It is also designated as the prana, the force. The Brahman is expressing itself as the Shakti, and that's why it is also called prana. It is called the Hiranyagarbha, the golden egg, the egg from which the entire cosmos has as if came out. And why it is Hiranyagarbha? Because it is shining. It is something not jara. It is not something inert. It is the intelligence. It is the mind, the cosmic intelligence, the cosmic mind from which the entire universe has came out, emanated. So the Brahman finds expression as that the world soul, the Hiranyagarbha, and that has been termed as the Matarishva. So now it is saying, Tasmin apa matarishva dadhati. Even this Hiranyagarbha, the life force, sustains all the activities because of this self. The self, as the self is behind that. The self is behind our mind, our senses, and the same self is behind the so-called the cosmic life force, the cosmic intelligence. It's behind that too. This is the common thing which is behind the entire existence, from the Brahma to the blade of grass. So Brahma, that's the way the scriptures explain, that it is the substratum behind the entire existence. So this is the mantra which we find, where there are many paradoxes, that it is one, it is unmoving, and at the same time it is swifter than the mind. So what it is speaking, why it is unmoving? That it never deviates from its true nature. It is always established in that. It always remains the same, as we were giving the example of that anvil. That the happenings of the phenomenal existence in no way affects the witness, the self, which is behind this entire existence. So that's why it is unmoving. And there is no other, actually, not only that, as per the Advaita Vedanta, the entire existence is just a projection. It's a superimposition on the self. So actually the self alone exists. The question of getting affected comes when there is duality. When there are two things, then only one thing can affect the other. If in the entire existence nothing is there, only the self alone exists, there are no other thing which can affect it. And that's why there is no question of getting affected. And that sense also, it is unmoving. So as there is no other entity besides the Atman, hence there exists nothing that can destroy its immutability. In the Upanishads, very nicely it has been described that as the Brahman was alone in a poetic way, he was scared. And then suddenly he realized that why I should be scared, that nothing exists apart from me. And then it became fearless. And then the Upanishad says, similarly, anyone who realizes that he is the Atman, he is one with the Brahman, there is nothing in the universe which can affect him, because he alone exists. So there is no question of fear. There is no question of mutilation. There is no question of getting affected by the so-called, the projection which we finding expression, which we find as being expressed as this phenomenal existence. So as there is no other entity besides the Atman, so the question of getting affected by anything doesn't arise. And again, if we take from the standpoint of this phenomenal existence, what we say that the Brahman has projected itself as the universe. So which means it is all pervading. Whatever we see in the universe is permeated by Brahman and Brahman alone. So being all pervading, so there is no question of movement. The movement can be there when you are limited in space and time. When there is no limitation of space and time, there cannot be any question of movement. So from all these standpoints, we find that the self is anejat ekam, the non-dual, unmoving, the only existence in this universe. After saying that, it is saying it is manaso javiyo. It's swifter than the mind. So why this paradox? So in Vedanta, they say this from the absolute standpoint, Brahman is unmoving. But this Brahman, when because of ignorance, appears as this universe, and it's the thing which is beyond all attributes, beyond all adjectives. Now, because of ignorance, when I find expressions of phenomenal existence, now it finds expression. We can as if find that it is with attributes. That Nirguna appears as Saguna. And then what happens? And then we find it is as if finding expression through the mind, through the senses. The self, the non-dual self, because of ignorance, appears as the mind, as the senses. As if something, it is beyond the mind, beyond the senses. And when this absolute self appears as this phenomenal existence, then we find this idea, it is moving faster than the mind, is applicable. How? That though unmoving, it is said to be faster than the mind. Why? Because the mind, very, very poetically, Shankaracharya in his commentary is saying that the mind can travel instantly in thought to distant places. So someone points me out that is the farthest galaxy which has been yet till now discovered by by the scientists. But in my mind, with my thought, I can go even beyond that. No one can stop. There is no limitation. But I can put on my mind. With my mind, I can travel anywhere instantly. But as it is the self alone which has been projected as the universe. So with mind, wherever you may go, all the things which I am saying is nothing but the projection of the self. What it speaks. That however fast you may go, the self is already present. Because it is everywhere. It is omnipresent. So that way it is faster than the mind. Manaso javiya. Now the question comes, if the self is faster than the mind. Now the senses, na enat deva apnuvam purvamarshap. Now the senses are farther away from Atman than the mind. Because it is the mind which illumines the senses. And now it has been said that the self is faster than the mind. So the question of the senses to be something transcending the self is impossible. Because after all, it is the mind that illumines the senses. An allegory we can give just in the full moon night. We think it is the moon which is illuminating the earth. But actually what has happened? It is the sun which has illumined the moon. The moon in turn has illumined the earth. Similarly, it is the self which illumines the mind. The mind in turn illumines the senses. So the question of senses outreaching the self can never arise, because the self can never outreach the mind. Then how can it outreach the senses? So thus we find that just as the sun illumines the moon, which in turn illumines the earth, similarly the Atman illumines the mind, which in turn illumines the senses. So thus the activity of the senses are controlled by the mind. So therefore, if Atman outstrips the mind, certainly it is beyond the purview, beyond the influence of the senses. Naturally, we understand that it's something which is obvious. So there is no question of the senses getting even a glimpse of the self. And then after saying that, again that paradox, tad dhavata anyan atyeti tishtat. So though it outruns everything, but still it is standing still. So everything in the universe is constantly in motion, but the self remains the unchanging background, the substratum. Just in the movie, just think of the screen. The screen is the substratum. All the movements which we see on the screen, all those movements which are going on, however fast it may be, it has to be within that screen, the substratum, which is again unmoving. That unless there is something unmoving, we cannot think of any motion. All the motion has to be in relative to something which is not moving. That's how we can understand motion. So ultimately there should be something unmoving relative to which motions can be perceived. So all the motions which we see, all the movements which we see, all the actions which we see, beyond that, the self is a substratum. So that's what, though unmoving, it is faster than the senses, faster than the mind. Why? Because without being activated by the self, the mind cannot work. The mind gets activated by the self, then only it can work. So there's question of outreaching. The mind outreaching the self doesn't arise. Very nicely we will find that every activity happens within that consciousness. So the self is the unchanging substratum, and within that everything is happening. So metamorphically we can say that it outreaches. The Atman outreaches everything, though it is unmoving. So tat dhavata anyan atyeti tishtata. Though standing still, though not moving, it outruns everything. Swami Vivekananda, in a very nice way, in his lecture, he pointed to a chair, and what he said, it is through the self that you know anything. I see the chair, but to see the chair, I have first to perceive myself, and then the chair. It is in and through the self that the chair is perceived. First I have to be aware of myself, then of the universe. That I am, this awareness is always there. But that is the substratum for all other perceptions. So first I have to perceive myself. Through me, I observe the chair. Whatever I am seeing, it has to be through me. So that's why it is through the self we know anything. That's what Swamiji, very nicely, he is presenting this idea. I see the chair, but to see the chair, I have to first perceive myself and then the chair. It is in and through the self that the chair is perceived. So we find in Practical Vedanta, in Complete Works of Swami Vivekananda, Part 1, the first lecture of Practical Vedanta, there this idea Swamiji is presenting. So, which very nicely explains this phrase, tad dhavata anyan atyeti tishtata. That though it is standing still, it outruns everything. And then the last phrase of this mantra is tasmin apa matarishva dadati. So as we were saying, that the Brahman's first, because of ignorance, the first manifestation is the cosmic mind, the Hiranyagarbha, the prana. And it is that the cosmic mind in turn has projected this, as if designed this entire universe. Just the way, if we have to build a house, what we do? First, we prepare a blueprint, and then based on the blueprint, then we go for the construction. So the blueprint speaks of the idea. It speaks of the idea in our mind, which is being represented by that blueprint. So first there has to be some idea behind the entire creation. So that's why in Vedanta they say that this entire creation first has been visualized in the mind of Brahma. And that's the idea of Hiranyagarbha. There's a difference between Brahman and Brahma. Brahman is the absolute reality. When it projects itself as the universe, first it projects as that cosmic mind, and that's called the Brahma, the Hiranyagarbha. And what he is doing? He is simply contemplating. You will find that Brahma as such is not with his hand creating the universe. He is sitting and is contemplating. The universe is called Manasa. It is the outcome of the contemplation of Brahman. It has came from his mind. So that's the cosmic mind which is behind the entire creation. And that has been designated as this Matarishwa. And here what is saying? Tasmin apa Matarishwa dadhati. That this in it, in that self, even the cosmic mind, the cosmic life force sustains all its activities. Without being in association with Brahman, it can as such perform nothing. It is inert without it. So that's the idea which we find here. So the cosmic life force, the Hiranyagarbha, the prana, sustains the whole universe by designating to everyone their function. So you'll find in Vedanta this wonderful idea of rhythm. Om is the absolute reality. It finds expression as Rim. This Vachaka Rim is used to explain Shakti, to designate Shakti. The Vachaka of Shakti is Rim. The Vachaka of absolute reality is Om. So the Om, the absolute reality, finds expression as Shakti. The moment it finds expression as that cosmic life force, as Hiranyagarbha, it's not chaotic. That energy finds expression through laws. In the physical world, as all the physical laws, that's how the universe is as if in rhythm. From the word rhythm, the English word rhythm, you'll find they're almost same. Rhythm speaks of laws, that everything is in rhythm, everything follows certain law. So the cosmic life force has designated the activities in entire cosmos with the help of rhythm. It is not chaotic. It finds expression through these laws, through some rhythms. So in the physical world, they find expression as these laws of gravitation, magnetic law, these laws of magnetism, electromagnetism. You'll find everything is bound by those laws. And not only the physical, in our life, even the moral laws are there. We cannot break them. Everything is bound by that. Laws can never be broken. Just the way if I say I don't believe in gravitation, I'm not going to fly. If I say I don't believe in gravitation and jump out from a 20-story building, I'm not going to fly. I will crash, and it will just be the result. It will be something, a fatal fall. So I can never break the law. Similarly, the moral laws, you will find in all the religions, they speak of commandments. They speak of vidhis, nishedhas. What it actually speaks of? The absolute reality, when it finds expression as this universe, which is nothing but an expression of energy. It all finds expression as some laws. That's why rhythm is called Satyam. Why it is Satyam? Truth is something which you can never overrule. Laws can never be broken. In our attempt to break laws, we will break ourselves, but we can never break the laws. So, through these laws, the cosmic life force, the Hiranyagarbha, is sustaining the activities of the universe. The universe is sustained through those laws. But without the self, even the cosmic mind is something inert. So because of this self, the ultimate reality, even the Hiranyagarbha, the cosmic mind, the life force, the Matar Ishwar, it is sustaining all the activities, all its activities. So that's the idea which we find is being indicated in this verse. Tasmin apa Matar Ishwa dadhati. So the world soul, the Hiranyagarbha, can exercise its lordship. It is the Lord. It has created all the rules as such to govern the universe. Its lordship is because of the Atman, which is its inner self. Just the way the Atman is our self, the same Atman is the self of the Ishwar, of the Hiranyagarbha. So in this, one of the Mahavakyas, Tat Tvam Asi. So this actually means the same thing. Tat Tvam Asi. You are that. How can I be Brahman? So that's very interesting that I can be Brahman, but I can never be Ishwar. So when Brahman finds expression as the universe, there is difference in the manifestation. Hiranyagarbha is the highest manifestation of the Absolute. We are, compared to that, it's a very limited manifestation of the Absolute. But we are all manifestations of the same Brahman. So in essence, even the Ishvara is Brahman. In essence, even a small individual being, an insignificant individual Jiva, he is also Brahman. So we are one with Brahman, but we can never become Ishvara because there's a difference in the manifestation. So as Swami Vivekananda used to say very nice way, how he used to say that there's a clay elephant and there's a clay mouse. The clay mouse can never become the clay elephant. But in essence, both are clay. So that's the idea. So all the activities of the universe, following the law of cause and effect, is possible because the eternally conscious Atman exists as the inmost essence and ultimate reality of everything. So that's the idea. So in this mantra, what's the idea which we get? That the self is the substratum behind his entire existence. Just the way when I see, there's a huge reservoir in the desert. So it's a mirage. The desert has to be the substratum. The desert is the substratum on which that mirage is projected. But that mirage, which appears to be full of water, can it in any way affect the desert? No. So that I see that such a huge reservoir, water body, but can it drench even a single sand particle? No. When I see a snake in the rope, can the snake in any way affect the rope? No. Because it's just a projection. So similarly, the universe as such has no effect on the self. That's why it is anejat ekam. It cannot affect it. It transcends. Though because of it everything is there, but it transcends the entire phenomenal existence. It in no way can affect it because it's a mere projection on that. It's just a superimposition on that. So that's the idea which we get in the fourth mantra. The fifth mantra. So this almost the same idea, the paradoxical nature, through the paradoxes when the self is being described, that this idea continues even in the next mantra, the fifth mantra. What it is saying? Tat ejati tannejati tad dure tad vantike tat antarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasyasya bhayatah. Tat ejati, it moves. Tan na ejati, tat na ejati, tannejati, and it moves not. So it is as if a continuation of the previous mantra, that it moves, at the same time it moves not. Tad dure, it is far. Tat antike, and again it is near. Tat antarasya sarvasya, it is within all the things which has name and form in this universe. Within that, it is as if the essence, it is within them. It is within all this you see in this universe. Tat antarasya sarvasya. Tat u sarvasyasya bhayata. And also, it is outside everything. So again, this apparent paradox we find here in this mantra when it is trying to give a description of Brahman. So why this tat ejati tannejati, it moves not, though as per its absolute nature is concerned, it is actionless, it is beyond all transformation, beyond all motion. Yet the same Atman, the same Brahman, appears to move in association with the attributes, the upadhis, namely the mind and the senses. So when it is in association, when it is appearing, it appears to move in association with the upadhis. Because of ignorance, the mind is being projected, and that now the self appears to be moving because of this, the mind and the senses, because of its association with the mind and the senses. So though it is unmoving, it appears to be moving. Tad dure, so it's the same. These examples are held. The screen that which we were saying. The screen is the substratum in which the movie is going on. So if you imagine a movie playing on a screen, everything is moving. The car is moving, the river is flowing, people are traveling, everything on the screen is in motion, yet the screen itself never moves. Similarly, the universe is full of activity, but the self remains unmoving. All movements takes place in that consciousness. So that's why the Upanishad says it moves because the universe moves in it. It moves not because the self itself is changeless as the substratum behind the entire existence. Tad dure. Now you will find that for us, for an ordinary person, we say we don't know when we will realize the self. Maybe innumerable births we have to be in ignorance. So for an ignorant, the Atman appears to be far away. But the one who has realized, his realized soul, where he finds him? He finds him as the essence of the entire existence. But for the wise, the one who has realized the self, he knows him to be the innermost self. So that's why, though it appears to be far, actually it is near. It reminds us the famous example of a masked deer. When the deer is having mask in its navel, it's drawn by that wonderful fragrance. It thinks it is coming from somewhere far. And it goes on running as if chasing after that fragrance. Sometimes it gets exhausted, it dies, but it never reaches that fragrance because it is ignorant of the fact that that mask is in its own navel. So this can explain you the idea, tad dure tad antike. Because of ignorance, I don't realize that it is the innermost self of each and every being, of me too. Because of ignorance, it appears to be as if something far away. I have to, as if, chase after it. So that's why it is saying, tad dure tad antike. In Vedanta, there are so many nyayas. One nyaya is called Chamikar nyaya, to explain this idea. That we never have to attain Brahman. It is already there. We are forgetful about it. So there are two words in Sanskrit, prapti and apti. Prapti means apraptasya prapti is prapti. Just at this moment, I am in need of a laptop. I don't have it. And somehow I get it. With all my effort, I accumulate money and I can purchase. So the thing which was not mine, now it is mine. So that is prapti. And what is apti? Praptasya prapti. The thing is which is already with me. I am forgetful about it. And that's for, to explain that, they say Vedanta resorts to Chamikar Nyaya. Chamikar means there's a necklace. The housewife is busy with his work and she is wearing a necklace, and the necklace has got hidden by the cloth she is wearing. And suddenly she puts his hand on the neck and finds the necklace is not there. And now she starts frantically in search of that necklace. Where it is, where it is. And then someone points out, "Arey, it is hanging on your neck." And then she removes the cloth and finds it was there only. So it was there, it got covered by the cloth, and it made her forgetful about it and made her search outside. So that speaks of the ignorance. So because of the ignorance, it was appearing as if somewhere else, but it is always with us, it is near. So that's why tad dure tadantike, this paradox. And then tadu antarasya sarvasya, that tat antarasya sarvasya, it is within everything. That's inside all the things, as the antaratman, as we were saying. It is because of him, because of its association, because the mind, the senses, in association with the self, is doing all its activities. So it is the antaratma, it is the innermost self of all beings. So Brahman is the inside of all things and outside all things, because it pervades everything. Because nothing can limit the infinite. Everything. So when I see a huge reservoir, that mirage, in the when I'm passing through the desert is the substratum. If you remove if the desert is not there, the reservoir immediately vanishes. When I see a snake in the rope, if you remove the rope, the snake is also not there. So the entire snake is permeated by the rope. The entire mirage is permeated by the desert. So that way, the self is all pervading, because the entire phenomenal existence is a mere projection of the self. So it's a superimposition on the self. So that's why the self is permeating the entire existence. So that's why I realize it within my heart, but at the same time it is all pervading. This idea, we can give some examples. Before that, I will just give a very nice example of Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna used to say very nicely this idea that though it is something in our heart, at the same time it is all pervading. He used to say very nicely. What he used to say, that God is everywhere. But where to realize him, where to find him? He used to say that the devotee's heart is the God's living space, living room. So what's the idea? That in your own house, you have access to each and every point of your house. You can go anywhere. But when some guest comes, you will be meeting him in your living room, isn't it? So that's where you meet with your guest. Similarly, Sri Ramakrishna, in his own naive way, nice way, that's in his the style of saying the profound truth in the simple way, how nicely he says that God is everywhere, but the heart of the devotee is his living room, is his drawing room. The idea is that though he is all pervading, but a seeker, the one who is in search of the self, finds him in the core of his heart, as if that's the place where you commune with him. So that's why he is inside everything, but at the same time, he is actually pervading the entire creation. So even there is another example of Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel, which speaks of the clay pot. He says the clay pot is just like the ego. You immerse the clay pot inside the ocean, inside water, and what will happen? The same water of the ocean, a small portion of that water of the ocean, now will be inside that pot. So there will be, I will say this is the water inside the pot, and all the rest of the ocean is the water outside the pot. So it is a pot which has divided the two. Similarly, Sri Ramakrishna is saying this pot is nothing but the ego. The ego makes this distinction between inside and outside. So, just like a clay pot, whether it is water or the space, there is a space inside the pot and a space outside the pot. But actually it is only one space. It is because of the ego that separation happens. Similarly, the same consciousness appears as many individuals. The bodies and the minds behind which the ego is there, the ego working through the body and mind are like the pots. The self is inside everything as the inner self and outside everything as the infinite reality, infinite phenomenal existence. So it's both within and without. So thus you will find this through these paradoxes, the thing which cannot be described, the Upanishad is trying to describe the thing with the help of these paradoxes, and that way it is indicating that it actually transcends all the dualities which we see in this world. So these mantras 4 and 5 of this Isha Upanishad describes the metaphysical nature of Brahman. The self that is unmoving yet swifter than the mind, far yet near, inside as well as outside all things. So this through all these paradoxes, it is explaining the the metaphysical nature of that ultimate reality, the Brahman. Now the 6th and the 7th mantra. So after giving a metamorphical, giving an idea of what that ultimate reality is. Now in this world, even a fool won't be motivated to do something unless he knows what's the use of it, what's the purpose of it. So when the Upanishad says this is the nature of the self, then really the question comes, I'm quite happy with my life. What's the use of knowing it? What's the purpose? So without purpose, even a fool won't do anything. So what to speak of a spiritual seeker? So here the purpose, that once you realize the self, what's the transformation that comes in your life? That's been spoken of in the 6th and the 7th mantra. The practical and the ethical consequences of realizing the truth. So in other words, we can say that mantra 4 and 5, just which studied, speaks what Brahman is. The 6th and the 7th mantra speaks what happens when one realizes the Brahman. So what now the mantra 6th will speak, 6 and 7 will speak. So let's first study the 6th mantra, what it is saying. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmani eva anupashyati. Atmanyeva anupashyati. So you break it, the sandhi is there. Atmanyeva anupashyati, atmani eva anupashyati. Sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tato na vijugupshute. So yastu sarvani bhutani atmani eva anupashyati. He who sees all beings in the self. So we will find Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, everything is in the Upanishads. From the same Upanishads, the way we are looking at the truth, all these various philosophies emanate from it. So here, when they say Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atmani Eva Anupashyati, it speaks of the whole and the part. He who sees all beings in the self. If the self is the ocean, if the self is the ocean, each and every individual, the jiva, are the waves. All the waves together constitutes the ocean. So that way, Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atmani Eva Anupashyati. When who sees all beings in the self alone. And then Sarva Bhuteshu Chatmanam. And the self in all beings. So the first line can be understood with this example, that if the self is just the ocean, Brahman is the ocean, each and every individual, the jiva, are the waves. And when I say Sarva Bhuteshu Chatmanam, what's the idea? The sun is in the sky, that is one, and each and every wave is having the reflection of the sun. As reflection, it is innumerable, but the sun is one. So it's the same sun which is being reflected in all the waves. So that gives the Sarva Bhuteshu Chatmana, and the self in all beings, as the reflected consciousness in all beings. So So the one who sees this, he sees all beings in the self and the self in all beings. What happens to him? He does not na tato vijugupshute. He doesn't hate anyone. Vijugupshute means he doesn't shrink away. He doesn't hate anything. That in a positive we can say his heart is full of unbound compassion, love for all, unhierarchical love. There is no hierarchy in his love. His love, as the Holy Mother used to say that Amjad is my son and Sarat is also my son. There is no hierarchy. His compassion is for all beings, and that also too without any hierarchy, without any higher and lower, more intense or less, nothing like that. There is no hierarchy. It's just unbound love for all. So there is no vijugupsa, there is no hatred. So what's this idea? That's again just we seeing all beings in the self, that we are as if a part of the Tantra existence. He is the ocean, we are the waves. Seeing all self in beings, in all being the self in all beings. What it means? That again, that unity in diversity. The same one sun is appearing as many, as the various reflections. Many. So what it says, that though appears the consciousness appears as many minds, but actually it is the one and one alone. The one who has realized that, for him, one who has realized this unity behind the existence, for him there cannot be any vijugupsa, any hatred. Why? This hatred becomes impossible, exploitation becomes impossible, fear disappears. Because why? Because you are seeing the unity behind the entire existence. In Bhagavatam, with the help of a very nice example, they explain this idea. That when you see the unity behind the existence, there cannot be any hatred. And what the example it gives? Very nice example in the Bhagavatam. That when you are having your food, accidentally your tongue gets bitten by your teeth, whom do you blame? It is the same, it is you who have bitten your tongue with your teeth. So there is no question of someone apart from me. So even the one who is helping me, the one who is harming me, both are part of me. There's a nice story in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, that one day a very cruel landlord was mercilessly beating a farmer for some reason, whatever it may be. And a holy man was passing by. He couldn't bear this merciless beating. So he somehow wanted to cajole the zamindar by some sweet words. And he went in between these two persons and tried to resist the landlord to beat this, to go on hitting this farmer. Now, the moment he tried to stop the landlord from his cruelty, act of cruelty, the entire rage now diverted to this holy man. And now he started beating this holy man mercilessly. And just because of that merciless beating, he fell down unconscious. The zamindar, the landlord, left. He was lying on the street unconscious. In the meantime, someone gave the news to the monastery where this holy man is to stay, this monk is to stay, that one of your monk has been mercilessly beaten by the zamindar and he is lying unconscious there on the street. So all the other monks, they run to bring him back to the monastery. They carry him back to the monastery. He was still unconscious, and now to bring his conscious to bring him back to consciousness, the abbot, the head monk, he says, why not give some hot milk in his mouth, and maybe he may regain his consciousness. So someone brings milk and tries to sip the milk in his mouth. and he regains his consciousness. He just opens his eyes. Now sometimes it so happens that a man who was unconscious has opened his eyes, but that doesn't entail that he has really become conscious. So maybe it is just a blank look. He is yet to regain his consciousness. So to ensure that he has regained his consciousness, someone asked, well, who is feeding you the milk? So just to see whether he has regained his consciousness, and then he will respond. And this holy man was a realized soul. What he said was interesting. The one who was beating me mercilessly is now feeding me milk. So this stories are so wonderful. Ekatvam anupashyat. He has seen the unity behind the entire existence. So there is nothing, even the one who is serving me, is feeding me, is the same who is beating me mercilessly. So for him, the hatred falls off. So that's the wonderful idea which we find. This is the first thing which is spoken of, first idea. This all hatred falls off. So, as we were saying, there's the same example, the Sri Ramakrishna's example, that our ego is like the pot. You immerse it in the water appears as two, something inside, something outside. Why this bifurcation has happened? Because of the ego in the form of the pot. Remove the pot, it becomes one with the absolute. It becomes one with the ocean. So, when the ego falls off, the self becomes one with all. So all the boundary breaks. So hence a sage cannot hate or despise anyone. So that's the idea which we find has been spoken of in the 6th mantra. And the 7th mantra, we will just read, we will go for its elaborate discussion again in the next class. What it is saying? Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmai va bhut vijanata tatra ko moha ka shoka ekatvam anupashyat. For one who sees all beings as the self, the same idea is being reiterated here. But there they spoke of Vijugupsa, that all your hatred falls off. And here they are speaking of ka moha ka shoka. All your so-called delusion, moha, shoka, all the misery, they also fall off. How can they be there once you see that ekatvam, the unity behind the entire existence? So the delusion, the moha, the shoka, all sorts of misery, sorrow, they fall off. Once you see the unity behind the existence, when you see the self behind the entire existence. So this moha, this shoka, this all fall off once I see the unity behind the existence. So that's the topic of discussion we will take up again in the next class. So with this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskar. So we will continue with the 7th and the 8th mantra in the next class. Thank you all. Namaskar.